I thought we were.
You
I
stole
thought we were
my
not
point.
doing.
I said
I thought we were
you
not
stole my
doing.
point, so you tried to steal my
How
point
did
for
I
like
steal
30
your
seconds.
points? I gave the
I
reasons
said
why
this is a
Shakur
contract
wasn't.
point.
Even
My
better.
first
The reason,
minute, in
I
my
gave
first
the
minute, I
reasons
said
why he's feigning retirement.
in my
You didn't
first
give-
minute,
you
I
didn't go
said this
into
is a
depth at
contract
all.
point.
You didn't go into depth at all.
Welcome to Sparring Session. I'm George Jakovic, the ref and the judge, alongside the champions, Chris Algieri, and the Sparring Session champion, the defending champion, who's defended his title twice successfully, Paulie Malignaggi. You guys are going to debate over 4 rounds, 4 topics. Chris Algieri, you're in a slump. Let's not get around this. You're in a big-time slump. You've lost 3 in a row. I got to ask you, you feeling good? You got the shades on. You got the ProBox hat on. You look like you're ready to rumble. Anything you need to get off your chest? How are you feeling today?
Listen, I just want to say, pendulums swing both ways. I won 3 in a row at the end of last year. I had a big start to the year. A little bit of a slump lately, but I think a lot of questionable calls, questionable rounds, questionable sparring sessions. And I'm not the kind of guy to complain, but I do get things done. So, Paulie might have been trying to.
He's not the guy that got to complain, but he complains.
But he's complaining.
I don't complain. I get things done. So, this guy puts in a commission. He wants to get rounds overturned. I want to get a new ref and a new judge because things are just not going the way that they should be. I mean,
you know what, Chris? That's spoken like a guy who's lost 3 in a row, and the last one very convincingly. So, listen, but Chris,
he's got his Neo look right now from the Matrix. He got his glasses on. He's turning over a new leaf.
I got faith in you.
Which pill you want?
Chris, I've got faith. Listen, you were a champ. You overcame against Provodnikov. You got dropped twice. You came back. You won that fight. So champions overcome. You're going to overcome. I know it. I know it.
I don't understand these guys that complain about these commissions sometimes. I
don't know, Paulie. Yeah, it's
coming from you.
It's weird, isn't it? Hey, before we get into the topics, it's fun coming up with these topics. I'm watching the fights last night, and I said, maybe a good topic would be which professional fighter looks like Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. That was too easy because Trevor McCombie looks just like looks just like Uncle Rico from Napoleon. Shout out to Trevor. He won his fight last night. All right, guys, here's the topics for today. We got 4 of them. First one is Mongia versus Morell. Second one is boxing's greatest nickname. What is it? Third one is what is more likely? And I'll tell you, the topic is what is more likely? Shakur staying retired or Keith Thurman beats Tim Tszyu when they fight. And the fourth one is fantasy fight, our boy Tim Bradley against Amir Khan. So those are the 4 topics. Paulie, this is becoming like a weekly thing. You're the champ.
What
you
repeat the topics again. The first one is what?
Mongia versus Morell, if they fought right now.
And the second one?
Greatest boxing nickname.
Third?
Paulie's not. Chris, Paulie's not paying attention, so he might be slipping in this one. Third one is what is more likely? Shakur stays retired or Keith Thurman beats Tim Tszyu, and finally, fantasy fight, Tim Bradley versus Amir Khan.
Okay.
You gonna start or defer?
I am going to. I'm gonna start.
Okay, Paulie's gonna start this off. All right, round 1. Look, Mongia had a big win over John Ryder. David Morell is unbeaten. Let's not even think about Canelo. These guys aren't getting Canelo next. But what if Mongia and Morell were to fight next? Paulie, you're starting round 1. Ring the bell.
Mongia is way too hittable, way too hittable, and Morell, a guy with the class boxing that he's had, the Cuban boxing school that he comes from, and the aggressive manner in which he approaches his professional career inside the ring. He's done some damage, as we've seen, even unfortunately to the fighter that ended up getting damaged, the Eastern European guy as well. He's a guy who's a rough character, but he does it in a technical way. Mongia is a fun fighter. He likes to be aggressive. He likes to bring it. I think he'll will be a fun fight, but I just can't see Mongia matching up. He's also, I think Morell might be even bigger than Mongia. You know, Mongia, I remember, let's not forget, Mongia started at 154 pounds. Morell is a naturally bigger guy, and that will come into play as well. And especially a guy like Mongia who likes to be physical, it's much more difficult to be physical against a naturally bigger guy physically. I think Mongia is outgunned tactically as well. Technically, I think Morell's a better technical fighter. But like I said, Mongia makes it fun. It will be an exciting fight. It will be a matchup that people would want to watch. Morell's a better fighter.
Yeah, that fighter that injured, Adios, your Bossinoli, something like that. We covered him on my podcast. Yeah, I agree. David Morell. I saw a lot of things, even in the Ryder fight, as good as Munguia looked. When Ryder fired back with some of those right hooks early on, it made Munguia think, and Munguia is a slow thinker. And Morell does everything fast, and he's got power. He's physical. He's long. We haven't seen him at that level and with a guy that kind of that top pedigree, but it doesn't matter, man. I mean, his conditioning is fantastic. He controls the pace great. He's got that huge amateur background. He's big. He's fast. He's technical. And I just think the lapses in his defense and his inability to think fast would keep him behind on a guy like Morell who's got a deep bag of tricks. And we haven't even seen how deep. So the only thing really that Munguia holds over him is professional experience. But at the end of the day, I see Morell being more physical and just a better boxer in general, better technician.
Right. Yeah, and it's not, and that professional experience, a lot of it is not at the high enough level. Let's face it, Morell has been in the amateurs in Cuba, and he's, probably the more professional experience Mongia has is easily overcome by the amateur experience Morell has, haven't had that experience in Cuba, haven't defected. So he had a much more difficult time of it with opposition in his earlier life than did Mongia, who turned pro young and came up the ladder and has become a very good fighter. But again, I think the bottom line is not just that he's not as good of a fighter, he also can't make up for it physically. Bigger physical guy.
Yeah, Mongia at this point, I mean, you see the size difference. He bullies a lot of guys. He's not going to be able to bully a guy like Morell. Morell is physically strong and he has power. Honestly, I could see Morell cutting Mongia up, potentially stopping him. You might even be able to hurt him. I mean, good body shots. He's very precise with his punches. He's very explosive. Yeah, that's a tough task for Mongia, and I would be very, very surprised if that fight were ever to happen because they know what Mongia is.
Chris, good start. You're up a round. And Chris, you are going to start round 2. You see it right there. Greatest boxing nickname. There's been a lot of great nicknames in the sport. Magic Man is one, Paulie Malignaggi. I won't give away any others, but the sport is replete with great nicknames.
What, the fighting collegian's no good?
If you want to use that, I'm going to reserve judgment.
I hope you guys are paying attention to the preferences that are being made. Mentions his nickname, not my nickname.
There's nothing catchy about
really play the politics.
Yeah, but it's interesting because you know who gave that to me? Michael Buffer.
Oh,
it's indicative. So that there's
listen.
Let's start the round and argue over.
Exactly, Chris. You're starting the round. Greatest boxing nickname. Ring the bell. Round 2.
Love this topic. Actually, I did this on my podcast not too long ago, so I got a whole bunch of them. But I mean, some of the great mentions. Roberto Duran, Manos Piedra, Hands of Stone is an awesome one. The Flushing Flash, Kevin Kelly, I love that one. DeVarrell Touch of Sleep Williamson, that's such a great nickname. But for me, the best one, the one that hits home for me that I really like, not only the nickname but also the fighter and how indicative of the name actually is Alexis Arguello, El Flaco Explosivo, the explosive thin man. I think that's just such a interesting name. It's so indicative of who he is and his style. Killer puncher, fantastic fighter, excellent technician. And you'd look at him and he was this thin guy and he was a gentleman and he's smiling, his little mustache, but man, he had dynamite in those hands that he laid guys out even at the lighter weight classes. So yeah, El Flaco Explosivo, that's my favorite nickname.
Break to the Magic Man.
Okay, well, you know what? Here's the thing. We're talking about great nicknames. So the fighter doesn't have to necessarily have been great. We're talking about the best nicknames we've heard.
Exactly.
Right. So these are all great fighters and with some good good fighters. DeVarrell was a good fighter too with some good nicknames. I'm going to say this. I remember I was going to get the nickname the 1 in a million Sicilian, but then Magic Man stuck because it ended up being cool. The 1 in a million Sicilian would have been my pick right now.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Nobody ever became the 1 in a million Sicilian. So I'm not there. So I'm going to go with Juan Lozcano, the Hispanic causing panic. All right, now that's a nickname. All right, it rhymes, it goes, it's wild, it borders on the utterly ridiculous, but that's a nickname. You want to talk about all-time best nicknames? That is the all-time best nickname because it encompasses everything you need. All those other ones are good, but they're referring to where you're from, like Irish Mickey Ward. It's like saying Italian Paulie Malignaggi. You know what I mean? It's like, some of them are they're just referring to the
Break.
fight.
This is the best nickname, not the most ridiculous nickname. The Hispanic causing panic has reference to nothing. Like the guy was a Mexican fighter. He fought tough, like whatever. Like I don't think anything about him was causing any panic out there. He was an okay fighter. He was very, very tough. He's fun to watch. El Flaco Explosivo, man. That's a classic nickname, and it's not like anything else you think of. It's explanatory, and you had white guys like me calling out this guy's name. It transcends. That's a great nickname.
Great.
Again, you're harping on the fact of how great Arguello was. Nobody's debating that. We're talking about the nicknames and how unique they are and how great they are. And the Hispanic causing panic, it rhymes.
Makes sense.
Hispanic causing panic rhymes. That's why 1 in a Million Sicilian would have been good if it was ever used because it rhymes as well. Hispanic causing panic rhymes. And Juan Lozcano was a solid contender. He was a solid guy. Fought for a world title against Castillo. Gates had in a very tough fight. He was a solid contender. Okay, but forget about that. We're not talking about contender. We're talking about the nickname itself. The Hispanic panic tops them all. Okay, rhymes.
There's our bell. There's our bell. Those are two good ones, man. There's so many great nicknames. John the Beast Mugabe, Thomas the Hitman Hearns, but
I'm trying. There was what's another one? The Flushing Flash. I really like that one.
Flushing Flash is a good one.
Kevin Kelly, Mark Too Sharp Johnson, really good one. I got a list right here.
Only one rhymes though. Only one.
You know what? I'll tell you what. Let's go for the scoring. There's the Golden Boy too, but Chris. Paulie won that round 10-9. He got me with the rhyme. Hispanic causing panic. I mean, it is a great, they're both great nicknames, but someone has to win the round. Hispanic causing panic.
I didn't know we were doing corniest nicknames.
So unique.
I didn't know we were doing corniest nicknames. I thought we were doing best. One that was very indicative to the guy. All right.
And that's why I would have picked 1 in a Million
chip on the
Sicilian,
shoulder. I like it. All right, listen, we got an even fight after 2. Paulie, you're starting round 3. And this is a more likely. Is it more likely that Shakur Stevenson is going to stay retired, or is it more likely that Keith Thurman beats Tim Tszyu when they fight on March 30th? Paulie, you are starting round 3. Ring the bell to start the round.
I mean, I think it's more likely that Thurman wins the fight against Tim Tszyu, but I don't predict that to happen. I would be very, very hard pressed to think Shakur Stevenson stays retired. I think this is a contract ploy, that his contract's coming to an end, and also a bit of frustration. And, naturally he's just mad. And of course, everybody can use social media to their advantage today. And there's always retirement and non-retirements constantly in boxing. So in a sport where nobody ever stays retired, certainly the guy who's in his prime right now is definitely not going to stay retired. So I think there's a better chance of Keith Thurman getting an upset over Tim Tszyu. Let's say, which I don't think much of a chance, but let's say maybe a cut. Maybe an injury to Tim Tszyu twists his ankle like Matt Korobov did against Chris Eubank Jr. or pulls out his shoulder, and then Keith wins the fight. Something like that could happen in Thurman versus Tszyu. I think that's more likely that Thurman wins an unlikely victory rather than Shakur Stevenson stays retired. I really can't see Shakur Stevenson retiring.
Great.
There's no chance that Shakur Stevenson staying retired. And it has nothing to do with him as a person, whatever. Listen, we covered this on one of our past shows. Make sure you subscribe. Check out our YouTube channel. We talked about this at length. He's a young guy. He's at the top of the sport. There's tons of money at his fingertips. He's a frustrated fighter, and that's why he's saying he's retired. And now, in terms of the Keith Thurman and Tim Tszyu, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Keith Thurman definitely could pull out a victory here. That's way more foreseeable than seeing than Shakur Stevenson not fight again. But also, you got to think Shakur, like, staying retired. Come on, he's 20-something. He's 26 years old. He's got 20 more years to make a comeback, and we've seen people fight way past that. But in terms of Keith Thurman, listen, the guy can still punch. His nickname was one time for a reason. He's very explosive early on. He comes out. You never know. Anything can happen. He could catch Tszyu. Tszyu hasn't been hit by, gets hit with a shot he doesn't see. He gets wobbled. He gets hurt. It would definitely be less likely, but it's possible.
Great.
Yeah, and again, the Shakur Stevenson is a guy who strikes me as he loves boxing. This is more frustration than anything else. He loves boxing, and when you love boxing that much and you love to compete that much, it's hard to eventually keep you out for a long time. Especially when you start watching TV and you start seeing lesser fighters than you having success. Your juices get going, and you want to fight again. I mean, there's guys who are in denial that they used to be great and don't want to retire, even though their greatness is behind them, and they want to keep fighting. So imagine a guy who's still in his prime. He would regret if he stays retired. He's not going to retire. Thurman, on the other hand, needs a break.
Shakur's using this as a negotiating ploy. His contract with Top Rank is coming to a close very, very soon. There's a ton of money available to him. There's a bunch of fights lined up right around him. He's going to be able to unify these belts within the next year, most likely. There's zero chance that he is going to stay retired. And listen, fights are fights. Anything can happen. Guys are punching each other. We've seen upsets. George, you are the upset king. You love bringing up upsets. Yes, Thurman beating Tszyu would be an upset, but it's way more likely than Shakur Stevenson never fighting again, never lacing a pair of gloves, never doing what he's been doing his whole life.
All right, there's our bell. I agree with both your points, and that's also an easy round to score. That's a 10-10 round. That's an even round.
Man, I had the better points. I thought we were.
You stole my points.
I thought we were not doing.
Points, so you tried to steal my points.
I steal your points. I gave the reason
why
this is a contract ploy.
In my first minute, I said
why he's feigning retirement.
In my first minute, I said this is a contract ploy.
You didn't go into depth at all. You didn't talk about the fights that were available. You didn't.
I went in depth on why Thurman would win.
It could be an upset. Come on, please.
I went in depth on why Thurman would win because I said the Tim Tszyu injury. Keith Thurman's hurt.
Yeah, you're like really. How about Thurman's a good fighter and fucking just wins? That can't happen.
Can I tell you guys something? Can I speak just for a second? This might be the greatest job I've ever had in my life. I really love the chaos and the arguing.
You're supposed to control this chaos. What are we doing over here?
Keep calling these draws, and I mean these.
See, listen,
that was my complaint to the commission. Less draws. I mean, let's make a definitive. This is why we have 10-9s.
Oh, it's been definitive.
You stole my point in like 30 seconds. I said he's a contract free agent in the first minute, and then you tried to swoop in and take my point in the last 30 seconds, trying to make argument with your point. That was my point.
I fleshed out the skeleton that you didn't even follow through with.
All right. Well, listen.
You try to close it, and then to steal my idea, make them think it was yours on the final.
Well, I've seen it work for you with George. Obviously George likes it when you do it. He doesn't like when I do it.
But listen, what we have here is an even fight going into the last round. So for everyone's complaining, the fight is on the table for someone to take in this fourth round. And Chris, you're starting the fourth round. We do fantasy fights all the time. Now we got one with our guy, our friend, our family, Tim Bradley versus Amir Khan. Remember, Tim Bradley said even now he'd want to fight Amir Khan, even though Tim hasn't run in about 7 years. So he's talked about this fight. We're talking in their primes, let's say 147. Tim Bradley versus Amir Khan, round 4. Who wins that fight? You started off, Chris. Ring the bell.
I would argue that Tim Bradley's prime may have actually been at 140, but if this fight's at 147, actually, I think Amir Khan had a really good run at 47 too. As someone who fought Amir Khan and fought a lot of the same fighters that Tim Bradley also fought, I definitively can give you this answer. I don't care what the other guy even said. I'm telling you right now, Tim Bradley wins that fight. He's far too physical on the inside. He's too crafty. The overhand right that Tim sets up beautifully, which he used in that Junior Witter fight, is a fantastic punch that is hard to see. Amir Khan wasn't always the best with radar. I landed big overhand rights on him. Tim wasn't a big puncher, neither was I. I was able to wobble Amir Khan. And even though I don't see Tim being able to stop him or being able to hurt Amir as that badly, I still think he would land enough of those right hands and he'd be able to rough Amir up enough on the inside. I've been on the inside with Amir. I threw him all over the ring. I was way too physical for him. Tim was a physically strong guy, especially at 47. I got Tim Bradley winning that fight, just being too physical, too smart, too tricky, and hiding that overhand right way too well.
Great.
All right, I can see both results here, but I'm going to take the opposite result because my cohort decided to take Tim. So I'm going to tell you why I'm going to go with Amir in this way, because it could go both ways. First and foremost, Amir always did very, very, very good with boxers, short boxers. Myself, Zab Judah, Devin Alexander. Because what does he do? He's hard to time on the outside. He boxes the hell out of you with really, really fast hands that makes him hard to time. He just shoots those super lightning combinations. And then he leans on you when you get close. Remember, Tim is short, easy to lean on. It would depend on the referee a lot lot, and he leans on you a lot, and he doesn't let you work on the inside. He ends up leaning all over you. Chris Algieri was able to land big shots, but Chris Algieri's tall like Amir Khan. He's also physically imposing like Amir Khan. So he can, a lot of those advantages Amir has over the shorter boxers, he did not have over Chris. Now, Tim might pressure Amir, but again, what Amir would do is lean on top of him. He leans on top of you, leans on top of you, and you got to get back on the outside. The referee breaks you, and on the break, you're back at the mercy of that speed. He changes range very well. The overhand is not easy to land when he's changing range, especially when you're shorter. When you're taller, you can reach it.
Break.
Amir's not as tall as everybody thinks. Amir was actually 2 inches shorter than me. Amir's like a good 5'8", 5'8 and a half. So he seems tall. He fights long. He's got long arms. He wasn't that tall. And Tim was very good at fighting taller fighters. He's very good at closing the distance and disguising his length and his reach. And that overhand right, which I've seen him land on so many different guys, I was able to land it. I saw that on tape. Think about Canelo Alvarez knocking out Amir Khan. Canelo Alvarez was actually probably a little bit shorter than Amir was as well. Overhand right all day long.
Canelo's a big guy himself, and Marcos Maidana ended the right hand, also a tall guy himself. Amir, I'll give you, maybe Amir's not as tall as he's advertised. He still is taller than the average size boxer, and also his arms will go down to his feet. His arms are scraping the ground. You know what I mean? So he's got this long ass reach, and then when he wraps around you, when he's on top of you, he holds you and he causes a break. When you get a break, it's more frustrating because then you got to try to chase him all over again, and he's back with those quick legs. Remember, in his prime,
there's our bell. There's our bell. There's our bell. All right. Compelling arguments. Paulie, it sounds like you would have picked Tim Bradley if you had gone first.
I can make an argument for both. I really don't know.
That's what I'm thinking.
I can make an argument for both because, again, the way Tim is physically built, it's advantageous to Amir. But I think Tim is an overall better fighter. But again, it also depends on the referee, because if you get a referee that just lets Amir do all the holding, it's wild. Like against Lamont, for example, like the referee didn't take Amir shit and he took away 2 points. But then
Judge, I hope this is not swaying your decision at all.
Not at all. It's already written down. Don't worry.
All right, go ahead. If it's not swaying,
I think Tim was just too physical on the inside. I think because that was the thing.
Amir on the inside is just pushing you down.
Yeah, I mean, as strong as Amir was on the inside, he didn't have a good judge of his own balance. That's why I was able to move him around so much, and why he was very strong with his upper body.
I hope this is not influencing you, because he's
not at all. Not at all. It's already written down.
But Tim was a very
Speaking of judging, let's get to the official scorecards. Okay, as I'm tabulating them right here.
Oh, the tabulation.
It's a 1-point victory. And we've got a new champion, Chris Algieri.
After you gave him the Mongia round because he gets stopped by Morell. Fans, I'm putting in my protest. Fans in the comment section, you better come get my back. Fans, I know you know better than this, especially with that first round.
Listen. This is what happened. This is what happened here. I outplayed you. I outplayed you. I knew you were gonna pick Tim. If I picked Tim first,
look at the new sparring session champions.
I knew you were gonna have to come with Amir Khan. And I led with I fought Amir Khan. I fought a lot of the same guys around Khan. I basically sealed it immediately.
You were tall. There was a different fight with you and Amir. You're tall. No. You're in the bag, ref. You're in the bag. We'll find out you bet on him at betting.ag. You're in the bag.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a new sparring session champion, and it's Chris Algieri ending a 3-fight losing streak.
Check George's bets on betting.ag.com. You
can go to sportsbetting.ag.
Yeah, betting.ag. You're on that site.
George, right here.
Check George's bets on betting.ag.
Make sure you like and subscribe. Remember, the 100,000 subscribers going to get a prize, just like Chris got a prize today. He's the new sparring session champion. So make sure you subscribe.
Talk less for
ProBox TV. Look at that. He's got the socks and everything. All right, Paulie. You're gonna come back strong. I know you are. Chris is the new champion. Make sure you subscribe to ProBox on YouTube.
We got an empty Manhattan special here. I was all caffeined up for nothing.
ProBox TV
admitted
is your boxing channel. Subscribe.